It's the taboo subject you're not supposed to talk about. Yet everyone seems to be talking about it.
And you know, I still yet believe that somebody, somewhere, is going to still try and do something to him.
Yes, I do feel that it's going to be attacks on his life. But with God, God can protect his life.
On the streets of Memphis, Tennessee, a sense of post-election jubilation among the black community is being tempered by a growing concern: the safety of America's new president.
They're going to attempt to do that, probably take his life.
Because there are some evil people out there with some evil thoughts.
First Airborne Division, air assault.
Vice President Dick Cheney, the man who's only a heartbeat away from the presidency, is actually a blood relation. He's President Bush's 9th cousin once removed. Cheney's cousin Barack Obama is also Bush's 11th cousin and the 9th cousin of Brad Pitt.
Birthers, deathers, those on the outer fringe are on the rise. It should come as no surprise then that almost a decade after they all but faded from view, anti-government militias are also on the rise, armed with weapons, residing in training camps. Hate groups in this country are multiplying, and as one law enforcement official puts it now, all it's lacking is a spark.
Yesterday, as President Obama addressed the veterans of foreign wars in Phoenix, a man at a pro-healthcare reform rally just outside wore a semi-automatic assault rifle on his shoulder and a pistol on his hip. The Associated Press reports about a dozen people in all at that event were visible carrying firearms. And the reason we're talking about this, a lot of talk here, Dylan, because people feel like, yes, there are Second Amendment rights for sure, but also there are questions about whether this has racial overtones. I mean, here you have a man of color in the presidency and white people showing up with guns strapped to their waists.
Healthcare in this way. I'm exercising my rights as an American in Arizona. I'm absolutely, totally against healthcare in this way, in this manner, stealing it from people. I don't think that's appropriate.
Tell me about why it was important for you to come out here today.
Well, I come from another state where open carry is legal, but no one does it, so the police don't really know about it, and they harass people, arrest people falsely, and I think that people need to get out and do it more so that they get kind of conditioned to it.
But we're only just getting started. President Lincoln was President Bush's 7th cousin 5 times removed, and Bush shared more than just a ballot with John Kerry. That's right, they're 9th cousins twice removed.
Really? What do you think of that?
Yeah, they have the same chin.
There's also royalty in the Bush bloodline. Princess Diana was Bush's 11th cousin twice removed.
Every day I usually offer up a big thought, and we call it the C note. And today I want to talk about a word that we're hearing more and more, and that's the word socialist. You hear from a lot of conservatives these days, usually critiquing the president or more broadly Democrats. And while that certainly is a legitimate critique, there certainly is an ideology that can and should be critiqued at certain times. It also sometimes is just a kind of a generic conservative bludgeoning tool. And that's all right, too, because you hear it on the Democratic side as well, right-wing nut, what have you. But what concerns me is when in some of those town hall meetings, including the one that we saw in Missouri recently, where there were jokes made about lynching, etc., you start to wonder whether, in fact, the word socialist is becoming a code word, whether or not socialist is becoming the new N-word for, frankly, for some angry, upset birthers and others.
He's also related to Playboy founder Hugh Hefner, even Pocahontas, and Vlad the Impaler. Trace the family tree far enough, and you get Madonna, Celine Dion, and Tom Hanks.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates.
And I want to thank, listen, and I want to thank the motherfuckers who helped them move they shit about the White House. Get it moving, bitch. Kick box. My president is motherfucking black, nigga. Yeah! I my president, my Lord Paul's blue. This brother has a very disturbing message in this song. I'm gonna let y'all hear it. Can I let y'all hear it? Y'all listen.
666.
666 murder, murder, Jesus.
Hope that's not the case, but it sure does say to you what David Brooks said the other day on TV, which is that more credible conservatives have to stand up and say that there's a line that has to be drawn, that there's a line of responsibility that's important, and that extends to the words that we choose, including how we use even legitimate words like socialist. I'm going to leave it there. Mort, your final thoughts for today?
Well, speaking of strangeness, federal authorities just nabbed 2 white supremacists who were plotting to go on a killing spree, shooting and beheading black people, and attempt to assassinate Barack Obama. Yeah. What the? Well, I should just say, what the hell? We know they're out there. But this is just insanity.
Well, these are Hitlerites. These are the white supremacists. They have, they have a whole history of hating black people. They're mentally unstable, these people, and need to be controlled and watched the way they watch terrorists.
Yeah.
These are terrorists.
Yeah. Well,
and I
they got
worry about Obama when he's out there.
They got him.
So there, I think, really is a line between the people you see, or some of the people you see at town hall meetings, amongst the deathers and so on, and the ideology that we're seeing being reborn with the militias.
Sometimes the most dangerous people. Sometimes the most dangerous people aren't the ones saying the things. They're the ones who don't. And they're the ones who gather only with those who think the way that they do.
They smoke,
and then
there's fire too,
Sometimes. But just, I don't know, man.
A new report out from the Southern Poverty Law Center shows that right-wing militias, ideologically driven tax defiers, and so-called sovereign citizens are materializing in significant numbers. One federal agent noting, you see people buying into what they're saying. It's primed to grow. What's priming the movement's growth? An ailing economy, of course, but one key difference between militia groups in the 90s and what's fueling actions now, the face of the federal government. The enemy that almost all parts of the extreme right see as the primary threat to freedom is now black.
It sounds simplistic when you put it that way, but it is real that there is tremendous anger in this country about government and the way government seems to be taking over the country, anger about a black person being president, just several upheavals in the country over the last 10 years, from 9/11 to the economic tsunami, to the black man becoming president. And, we see these hate groups rising up, and this is definitely part of that. I'm not going to be surprised if we see somebody get a chance and take a chance and really try to hurt him.
So, I think the battle has come down, I think, as you well know, to a kind of calling out of these people. They've got to be shown for what they are, which is people who are unwilling to deal with reality. So when somebody gets on television and says, or suggests that FEMA is running a secret series of concentration camps around the country, that person has to be isolated and called out in the very same way that the birthers have been over the last couple of weeks. I think that really is the nexus. Who's to say whether that person was explicitly associated with the militia or not? I certainly don't know that, and I'm not suggesting it, but it's those kinds of ideas that make the militias thrive.
Why won't you die?
Beneath this mask, there is more than flesh. Beneath this mask, there is an idea, Mr. Creedy. And ideas are bulletproof.
Or really, and I mean, it's up to the Secret Service to make sure that it doesn't actually become history. But, I think we're going to see somebody, some sort of Squeaky Fromm, some sort of Mark Hinckley figure, because there's so much anger in the country about him, about what's going on with government.
Angry at government and racism, you put those two together.
The reality is that, we're seeing it in the town hall meetings, we're seeing it in some of the other reactions to Obama, the deathers and so on, as you've suggested. The reality is that there is an immense amount of totally false propaganda out there, and much of it is coming from the militias or similar groups.
Have you heard about this new thing going on in Great Britain, that Al-Qaeda written up all these Britons, essentially, 1,400 strong, apparently, in what's being called a new white Al-Qaeda army. Tougher to detect, potentially.
Yeah, because they're not Muslims. They look just like regular British people.
They're converts.
False, almost martyring of people involved in this. Is that part of this equation?
Well, in a sense it is. In the sense that, there is just an immense amount of false propaganda out there. There are people saying things that they know are not true. There's outright lying being done by commentators and politicians and in people in positions of real authority.
I just want to say that the only thing less popular than putting money into banks is putting money into the auto industry.
18% are in favor. 76% against.
It's not a high number.
You're sitting here and you are laughing about some of these problems. Are people going to look at this and say, you're sitting there just making jokes about money? How do you deal with it? Explain your mood and your laughter.
Yeah, there's got to be.
Are you punch drunk?
No, there's got to be a little gallows humor to get you through the day.